You wondering who will be diving into the stuffing less than 2 times? Or who will be eating more than 3 pieces of pie on Thanksgiving? Well, then you got to play the Pick 6 game from DraftKings. Your shot to turn a little cash into a lot. It's super simple to get started. First, download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, now available in Texas, California, and more. Then select between 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less than a certain stats, like yards or touchdowns, sacks, whatever. You choose if they're going to have more or less. And for the first time, Pick 6 players, check this out. New customers play $5. You get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code BALLERS. That's the code BALLERS for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus bets awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offers. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
This episode is brought to you by Bleacher Report. How do you follow sports? From college football to the NBA, Bleacher Report brings you the latest news, live scores, and epic highlights from your favorite leagues, teams, and athletes, all in one app. Dive into exclusive shows hosted by your favorite athletes and original Bleacher Report series with breaking news, rumors, and predictions all season long. Download Bleacher Report to personalize your coverage.
The DFS Studio is brought to you by DraftKings. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Merry Christmas Eve to you on the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I'm joined, as always, by Matthew. He is the Santa Claus Betz.
I mean, if you're listening to this with your kids in the car, turn it off. But man, it's kind of fun playing Santa. And last year, like, my twins were only like 1.5, so they didn't care, and they didn't really appreciate what's going on.
They didn't know anything.
But this year, dude, they are so into it. So it's a lot of fun. I can't wait. We're going over to my mom's today for a big family get-together. There'll be, I think, 29 of us in total at my mom's house. So complete chaos. It'll be fun. And then, we'll get home, do the whole Christmas Eve setup and all that. And then it'll just be our family tomorrow. So I'm excited to see them have their first, not their first, but their first like real Christmas experience the morning of. So it'll be fun. Any big plans for you guys?
Yeah, we're going over to my in-laws' house, and then we are going the next day. Everybody's coming over our house. We're hosting. And last night, my kids said, "Oh, we're having like 5 different Christmases. This is great," because they kind of just talked about every single little thing they get to do over the next couple of days. But I do like that perspective of this point in life where you kind of get to do it all over again. You kind of get excited about, some gifts that probably won't matter a year from now. Like they're just going to be thrown aside.
For sure. And I remember last year, like, it was literally like open one, play with it for about 4 minutes. Okay, let's not even touch that for 3 weeks. So it was like, dang it, we just wasted all this money. So we'll see if it's different this year. I did get the girls I got them each a new Eagles hat, which I am very excited about. I can't imagine they'll be as excited as I am, but hopefully they get to wear them here for the next few weeks as we look towards the playoffs. But unfortunately, the Eagles faltered down the stretch here, so that 1 seed is out of reach, sadly, against the Commanders, which, I had some people give me a little bit of a hard time, some friends from college that are big Commanders fans, some people on Twitter, not a ton of the Commanders fans, but I do just want to...
gave you the business.
I just want to point out, it was Kenny Pickett. It took a last-second touchdown. All my friends were like, Betz, you would never see this coming. I was like, guys, Kenny Pickett played 95% of that game. So, Commanders, you can have this. You can have this one moment, but you're not ruining my Christmas.
You guys technically aren't even winning the division yet.
True that.
All right, so you still got to stay with it. I believe the sides and totals guy on this show.
You were on that.
Took the Commanders.
You were on that. That's true.
It only took like a miracle, like after them turning the ball over so much and all those things.
How did Jets plus 3.5 go?
That one, it didn't go as well.
Okay.
So we kind of hedged there. Yeah, kind of hedged in a couple of spots. We are glad that you're with us. It is Christmas Eve. We're recording this, and we're covering the Christmas games on this episode. So 2-game Christmas slate. We'll talk about our cash process from this past week. And then don't worry if you're one of those people that, hey, I'm not really playing on Christmas, like we will cover the main slate and do our salary standouts. And then our episode later on this week, we'll cover the main slate. There's football basically every single day, and there's a slate for every single iteration of what you want. So if you want to play Christmas, if you want to play the Thursday night game, if you want to play Saturday three-game slate, if you want to play the Sunday, if you want to play Monday Showdown, there is so much football that my brain kind of hurts. Like, I was looking at my lineup. I mean, no big deal. I'm in the championship in my home league that I've made the playoffs. 9 of the last 10 years have never won it.
This is the year, Kyle.
I'm there.
This is the year.
I was like weighing my matchups because I'm facing somebody that has, get ready for this, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Brock Bowers.
Just log out. don't even bother.
But I was looking at my lineups, and a lot of people are doing this in their home leagues, but like, okay, I have a guy, I have Nico. He's starting on Wednesday. Okay, that's cool. Oh, wait, I have somebody on Thursday. Oh, wait, I have a couple guys on Saturday, to the point where I was like, there is just so many things that I'm going to forget. Like, I'm going to forget about football this week.
There's football every single day. And if you're a college fan, there's literally football every single day. So what a time of year, Kyle. The holidays are all about bringing your family together and ignoring them to watch football and sweat DFS. So it should be fun, man. And the best part about this, like the Thanksgiving slate, hey, Grandma, I mean, we really need one more Rashad Bateman long reception here. Do you think we can do it? Sweating with the fam that doesn't care at all about what you're doing or understand what's happening is the best part of this. So it should be great. Share it with your family.
What you didn't realize is that Grandma took the under. And so she is just she's like, I don't want football. I want football like we had in the 40s.
Meanwhile, Grandma played Isaiah Likely as leverage off Rashad Bateman, and Grandma's just printing. So it should be great.
How awesome would that be if you had a grandmother who was just not only knew DFS, she just knew ball, and she understood that at the end of the day, unders make money. And so she's just taking unders left and right on everybody in the game. We're all rooting for football, and it's Christmas, and she's just raking in the dough.
That would be incredible. Sadly, I don't think my grandma does that.
All right, moving on.
Straight cash, homie.
I hate to say it, but I missed the cash line for the first time in 7 weeks. I missed by 4 points. And I do want to blame somebody. I'm not really, it's the process. It's me. It's your boy, Jacoby Myers, man. What did he do?
I love it.
Dang it.
For the last month, you're like, what? Dude, Jacoby, why are you so into this guy? I'm like, man, he's seen 10 targets every single game. He's in the mid fives. He's a great price tag for that. This past week, you come on the show, you're pounding the table for Jacoby, and right when that happens, he lets you down. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting slate for cash. I had a really good week, fortunately, in cash games. And part of the reason was, the running back plays were so strong. And I think if you had Gibbs and Connor, you made out pretty well. I did think it was really interesting from a tournament perspective. You could feel the steam coming on Michael Penix. And like even in cash games, like he was the guy. I mean, he was super cheap, so he didn't really tank your lineup in cash games. But if you, in small field, if you had the feeling on that, or you could sense it, like everybody's talking about Penix, nobody wants to play Anthony Richardson. I got a Richardson team in tournaments at 10%, and I was psyched about that.
Right.
So those are the kind of things that, especially in small field, you can take advantage of too, even though I thought A-Rich was a really good cash play at quarterback. My lineup just needed the extra money. Take it down to Penix. But yeah, man, it was a fun slate, really high scoring slate, and kind of wild. So
yes.
I don't know if we'll see that this week, but it's definitely a fun slate in week 16.
Yeah, the running back plays were super obvious, and if you're one of those people that even zagged, like I had Saquon in a couple spots. Like I had lineups where it was like Saquon, Connor, Anthony Richardson. I brought it back with Calvin Ridley, who got an early touchdown. I was just like, I felt so good about some of my lineups, but it actually didn't really matter because all of the running back plays put up points. Like across the board, you could have had two guys in your lineup. Let's say like I had a lineup that was James Cook and James Conner, the James COs. And they were awesome. And yet there was another player on the slate who just absolutely broke it.
Hey, this is Jonathan Taylor, running back for the Indianapolis Colts, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers podcast.
JTT shattered the slate, Kyle.
Well done, my friend.
I was excited after the first run. I was like, okay, people probably played him. Like, I think they're going to make some money. Oh, he's doing it again. Oh, Richardson was down at the 1. Give it to Taylor. So it was just an unbelievable outcome. And, those happen like once a season when you have a call like that.
Right.
And everybody asked her like, dude, you must have had an incredible week. I'm a coward. Okay. I played one Jonathan Taylor lineup out of my 5 GPP teams, but that team sadly had Penix. I stacked him with Drake London. It had Brenton Strange. So like that, he was my differentiator, which was great, but the chalk around him let me down. So it was a min cash, sadly, for me, but I know a lot of people had a ton of success with JTT. And what's interesting about that, if you would have played Richardson with Taylor, you would have smashed on the slate. But never would you think about that, right? It's like Lamar and Derrick Henry. Like you think about those guys negatively correlating, but they both smashed together. So yeah, shout out to Jonathan Taylor. I faced him in a home league and got absolutely destroyed. So maybe the call was more of an emotional hedge than anything else.
That's what it comes down to. That's all this is.
But I'm happy people won money with him.
Yeah, I think one of the ways, just my takeaway from the slate, is that if you played it a certain way. So like I played Richardson. I didn't play Penix at all in tournaments. And I didn't play him in cash. And I felt really, really good about, okay, well, I played some Falcons defense. Like at the end of the day, if you played chalk, like chalk wide receivers or Brenton Strange, if you play those players around some of your running backs, you probably failed because like a lot of the high-end running backs, you needed 3 of them. You needed to basically not play Penix. You needed to pay somewhere else. So like I had a team where I even had Jaden Daniels in there. I was like, but I had Ertz. So it kind of just came down to you needed to hit the nuts in this slate. Like there was no like chalk plays plus, I get different one other spot. Like you needed to really, really go berserk. So it was a fun slate. Like I loved the high scores in the early window. I thought I had some teams that were super live. And at the end of the day, like even in the afternoon slate, there was a lot of awesome football. I mean, the Bills had to come back down early. So that one was pretty interesting. But we did have some listeners who won big. Money, 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 money. This first one is from Rich Foster on Twitter. He said, I got second in the $5 weekly, 7th in a $2 one, and first in Bucks Cowboys Showdown. I am taking the family to Chili's for lunch tomorrow. Thanks for keeping it fun. All of us listeners informed. # top shelf on me.
That's right, Rich. Treat yourself.
Yeah. Way to go, Rich. And then another one here. This is a good one to get on in Discord from Blueface Only. I've been listening to Borg Betz all year. I played both of your slate breakers and have some Chili's in my future. Thank you, boys. And then here's just casually throwing this in. I won $20K on the early slate. And Chuba actually cost me another $30K, but I can't complain.
Man, $20K. It could have been $50K. We don't worry about that. $20K is still nice. Congratulations to these 2 winners. I know there was a bunch more in Discord as well. Really fun to see people sweating those lineups and having a good time together. And the positivity has been great. I mean, everybody in there is just like, even if you have a down week, people are supporting you and saying, hey, man, this is the process. Yes. Get back to it this next week, or here's kind of maybe some lineup adjustments you can make. Everybody congratulating everybody else. So just a good time to be in Discord, man. I'm really fun. Having a really fun time this year with everybody in there.
And I did have one more little update in this section where we get to celebrate because your boy here is in the finals of the Hound Dog.
I'm Hound Dog.
I had no idea you had that ready to go.
Dude, I immediately when I got in, I was like, I got to find that Fox and the Hound drop.
There's definitely listeners
hit it
who
again.
have no idea what that even was.
I'm Hound Dog.
Oh, dude, that's great classic Disney.
I'm Hound Dog.
It is nice. The Hound Dog was one of those smaller tournaments that I believe it was like a 5-entry max. And so I made it through. I'm sending bets this roster right here if you guys, want to get on board. But it's Burrow. My other quarterbacks are Watson and Fields. So, but I do have a Burrow triple stack. I have Chase Brown, I have Jamar Chase, I have T. Higgins, and you can kind of see those 4 players paid off in a massive way. I mean, Burrow, Chase is definitely one of those, but I overstacked them, and Chase Brown was one of those players. Now, Chuba really came through in the semis, and there's some other weak spots on this roster, but Debo, I told you earlier this week, I said, if I have a Debo team that somehow made its way through, and I bet nobody else has Debo in my tournament, and in my last semifinals, no one did. So if I get some more Debo action, I'm feeling really good. He's on Monday night. So $20K is the prize.
Come on, baby. I'll be pulling for you. I sadly did not get any teams through. I had 6 that were live. They all kind of fizzled out here down the stretch. So no finals for me this year, but I'll be living vicariously through you, rooting for Debo on Monday night.
Yeah, if Fields want to get in there on Christmas and just go berserk and run the ball, I'm fine.
I think it's on the injury report.
You could see some of my thought process here because I have Jalen Warren, I have the Muth, I have Fields. Man, it's a weird. Jerry Jeudy somehow is on this team.
Yeah, he was on a couple of my best teams, and what's funny is I remember at the time just being like, whatever, fine. I guess you're fine as my wide receiver 5, And it's funny how that works out. How those are the guys you never really thought you would need, but we'll see what happens at Cleveland. DTR dealing with an injury. Jameis potentially dealing with an injury. They didn't really say, but he was the 3rd quarterback last week. So
it's Zappy, right?
Yeah, which would just be a train wreck for David Njoku and Jerry Jeudy. Come on, Jameis, get in there, baby.
All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the new generative AI assistant from AWS. Many tasks can make business slow, like wading through mud. Help! Luckily, there's a faster, easier, less messy choice. Amazon Q can securely understand your business data to help you streamline tasks, like summarizing quarterly results or doing complex analyses in no time. Q got this. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Stack Attack.
That was the first time in the history of the show that I got to hit 3 drops in a row.
I mean, don't let the kid get hot.
It's not every day we get to talk about a Wednesday Christmas slate.
ChristmasFootball.com.
It's not on the card. Yes. By the way, if you're one of those people and you're just scrolling, you're trying to figure out, what website do I go to? Where am I at? ChristmasFootball.com is one of the main income sources of our company. It's one of the main ways that we stay in business. We keep the lights on. ChristmasFootball.com. Tell your friends. Tell your grandma. Tell grandma she can get her content this Christmas at ChristmasFootball.com.
I mean, is there any better conversation at the dinner table at Christmas, your holiday meal? Hey, grandma, listen, check out this site, ChristmasFootball.com. Go there. You're going to have a great time.
She's got it on her BlackBerry, on her whatever,
her Motorola
she's
Razr.
Scrolling. Hey, those are styling and profile. So, Betz and I are going to talk about these 2-game slate. Now, it's early in the week, but also these games are super early in the week. So, Kansas City at Pittsburgh, and then we'll talk about Baltimore at Houston. When you have a 2-game slate, you do have to think about roster percentages. And I'm just going to be honest, Betz and I have not gotten to go through the full game theory portion of ownership and roster percentage yet because we literally just finished last week. And then also we our schedule this week is crazy between having football every single day, obviously wanting to be with our families, Christmas Eve, Christmas. So our schedule is updated on the website at the dfspass.com if you want to make sure that you're like, see how things change. So we're completely off on Wednesday. Please do not ask us any questions. Also, please be with your families. Do not be farting around on Discord on Christmas. But anything you want to say about the schedule this week before we talk about these games?
Yeah, just real quick. There's no Vegas Report article this week. Just tough timing with the holiday and everything. So that'll be back next week. There is no Thursday Night Football Showdown article up. However, as a makeup for that, I'm going to write up Monday night, which will be Lions and Niners. So you'll see that on Monday on the site. No Thursday night article. Otherwise, DK, FanDuel Cash, tournament picks, best plays, all that stuff as usual. And then we'll be back on Friday as we talk through the main slate. But just giving kind of how the slate sets up from a Week 17 perspective with the Wednesday, Thursday, and then Saturday games, we're going to focus on the 2-game slate today. And then all of our content otherwise will be scheduled towards the Sunday main slate. So we will not have Saturday content for this week for DFS.
When you're playing a 2-game slate like this, we've talked about it before. With a condensed pool, be willing to get different. Be willing to leave some money on the table. So your full 50K that you're used to. And then also, we would recommend you pick a stack, an overstack, or at least pick a game and say, hey, I think this is the route, this is the game. Instead of saying, I want a couple different pieces of every single team, that's usually what people end up doing. And you end up having a lot of outcomes that are median outcomes when in tournaments, obviously, we're chasing. So we don't play cash on these slates. We look at them and kind of say, okay, what is the route? What is the game flow? What is the game script? And how can we go there? So the first game is Kansas City -3 at Pittsburgh. The over-under is 43.5. There are some defensive injuries that should shape how you look at this game. So what do we have so far in terms of injuries?
Yeah, on the Chiefs side, defensive tackle Chris Jones, I don't think he's going to play in this game with a calf injury. He's not practiced yet this week. And you look at KC, I don't think they're 100% locked, but I would be shocked if they don't pick up the 1 seed. So basically, it's like if they rest him for this game, they can rest him in Week 18. They get the bye. They get a month off of their best defensive player to win a Super Bowl. I think they're going to sit him. So potentially and very likely no Chris Jones in this game, which should help the pass rush be less effective, basically, for Russ. Also a plus matchup in that situation, I think, for Najee and Jalen Warren in the run game. And then on the Pittsburgh side of things, cornerback Joey Porter Jr. Also did not practice yet this week as of Sunday and Monday. We're still waiting on Tuesday's report with a knee injury. And obviously, if he is out, that will be a slight bump to the KC wide receivers.
I'm going to start on the Pittsburgh side because if George Pickens is back and he was practicing, it does change the outlook of Russ and the overall ceiling. In 6 games with Pickens, Russ is averaging 8.7 yards per attempt, and his pace would be 4,600 passing yards, which is just nuts. The last 3 weeks, 6.2 yards per attempt and just a 2,800 yard pace. So that changes a lot of things. I think Pickens is one of those plays that we talked a lot about best ball. He's expensive for what kind of skill set he has on DraftKings, but I think on FanDuel, he's interesting at 7,600 because you're hoping for yards, you're hoping for touchdowns, but Pickens has never been one of those players that's going to get 8-9 receptions. So with a full practice, I think he is definitely somebody on FanDuel that I will be targeting at that price. How else are you looking at the Pittsburgh side?
Yeah, just for context, like over the last 5 weeks, and granted, some of those games were without Pickens, but we've seen their pass rate of expectation be 23rd in the league. So we know Arthur Smith wants to be balanced, wants to limit Russ's dropbacks, and really just rely on efficiency. And so when I think about that, like if you are going to stack up Russ, it's really tough if Pickens is back to sell me on multiple of the cheap guys, whether it's Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek left the last week's game, but he was out there playing snaps last week. So like they have their committee approach behind Pickens. If you're setting rules in an optimizer, for me, it'd be a max one of that trio, not named Pickens. I just find it tough to see 2 of those guys getting there on this slate. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about from a Russ stack standpoint. If you did want to go that route, you know, it's not a terrible matchup. KC has been 14th in EPA per dropback over the last 6 weeks. They kind of had a really strong start to the year. They kind of fell off in the middle, and they've picked it back up recently. So I'd say it's a neutral matchup for Russ on this slate. As far as priorities for me, I don't think he's a priority, but if you're playing 150 or a 20 max, like I think I want exposure to all four quarterbacks. Just it's a small slate, weird stuff can happen. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about with Russ. I almost certainly want to stack him with Pickens if I'm going to play him, though, obviously.
Yeah, it's tough with Russ. 5,500 is a really awesome tag when you compare it to some of the other quarterbacks on this slate. And if you want to find the value and you see how efficient he's been, he's at home. They want to win to keep pace and get that third seed ahead of Baltimore. So, there's some motivation here. I think the way that you play this game and the theory part is I'm just trying to figure out with the running backs who's going to be played more between Najee and Jaylen Warren. And there's been a trend in the direction with Jaylen Warren. There's been a trend of on a PPR site, we want that floor, and Najee has been a 0 in the passing game for a while. So is it one of those things that if you did stack up Russ, you'd want Pickens, and then you're picking another option? Is it Warren or the Muth?
I think that's how I would play it. The running back situation specifically over the last 3 weeks, Warren has played 57% of the snaps, Najee down at 35%. Najee still leading in carries 31 to 25, but targets, like you talked about, 12 for Warren, 2 for Najee over the last 3 weeks. So I really think you should pick a game script and run with it. Like if you think this game stays really close or Pittsburgh can get out to a lead, I'd probably want Najee. If you think that they fall behind and are forced to throw against the Chiefs, I want Warren in that situation, just given how they played. I will note the Warren usage as far as the last couple games have been in some trailing situations. Like against the Eagles, they were down, big kind of early, so like that makes sense. But yeah, that's a game script situation for me. As far as the matchup, they've been very good, KC has, against the run recently, but they've kind of fallen off the last couple of weeks. Like 20th in success rate, not terrible. 4.5 yards per carry. It's middle of the pack. Like it's a neutral matchup, and if Chris Jones is out, I think the run game can have some success here. So if I had to pick one, I would probably lean Warren, but I think the field's going to feel the exact same way. So I do think Najee is interesting just from a return perspective, especially on FanDuel where he's only 6K.
Yeah, I think the game script, you're thinking about this game, the way these teams win, the way that the Chiefs have kind of won all year, playing games close. And the Steelers are one of those teams that just kind of always end up gnawing at other teams, sticking around. So I think Najee is one of those plays where if you're building a script where they get out to a lead, you're not saying he gets 100 yards. Well, let's say he gets in the end zone at least once. It's not crazy when you look at this slate. Like Pacheco's been one of those plays that's just been bad. I mean, 3.7 yards per touch since he's returned is awful. He's been ceding work to Hunt. And then we're going to talk about the other game, but Henry on the road against a tough run defense and Mixon against basically the league's best run defense. Like there's a scenario where Najee is the RB1 or RB2. He's what you need. And he gets passed over on this slate. So I think I like Najee for that call. It's gross because some of his game logs are just, 8 points. And you're like, this isn't going to help me. We're talking about a different slate here. So every single player's in play. And, you get a median outcome from Najee. That could work at 5,400 or 6K on FanDuel.
Yeah, and if you think about like how many running back plays are even viable on this slate, you've got both KC guys, both Pittsburgh guys. Justice Hill's not going to play. So I guess if you wanted to throw a dart and like the Millie Maker on somebody else that's the RB2 for Baltimore, fine. But like it's pretty much only Henry, and then it's pretty much only Mixon. So there's not that many running backs that you could even pick from. And from a game theory standpoint, if Henry and Mixon both fail, just relative to expectation, they don't even have to be straight up terrible. But if Henry gets you, let's say like 15 at his price, and Najee gets you 9 or 10, the roster construction you might need to win as far as salary allocation might be at the wide receiver position or quarterback position. In other words, that would fail for Henry. So I do think both running backs are good plays on this slate. Again, you need to rethink what you need to win. 8, 9, 10, 11 points from one of your running backs might be enough. It's a 2-game slate, right?
Calvin Austin, I just want to mention him real quick, and then we'll go to the Chiefs side. I feel like he's one of those plays in DFS that gets steam because every once in a while, like he's hit as a dart throw for us, once or twice over the last year. But at 4,200, he's not cheap. Like this isn't some 3,200 wide receiver we're just throwing a dart on. FanDuel 5,800. I'm looking at some other plays that are just going to project so much better from just a raw target standpoint. So I feel like Calvin Austin's one of those plays that ends up just being chased because he did end up playing the downfield Pickens role. And with Pickens back, it's going to shift a little bit. So I don't know. I think he's too expensive for his skill set. I get it for him, getting a long bomb and getting a touchdown. But the Chiefs are one of those teams where you can't really do that. So I don't know. Austin's, I'll probably be underweight the field.
Yeah, I agree with you. He did lead the team with a 16% target share over the last 3 weeks without Pickens, but when Pickens has been out there, these guys are just kind of fighting for scraps behind him, and it's been a full-blown rotation with Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, Mike Williams, right? Like, it's really tough, and just from a pricing standpoint on DraftKings, like you talked about, like Hollywood Brown is right there, Rashad Bateman, one of the Houston guys, John Mechie or Robert Woods with Tank Dell out. Those guys are all right there, and their projection is so much stronger. So, yeah, I think Austin obviously can make your player pool as a 150 guy or a 20 max, but for me, I definitely agree with you. I'll be underweight.
All right, let's go to the Chiefs side, and I want to highlight a guy that I have always loved. You've always talked down about Xavier Worthy. You've always thought, there's some parts of his game that, not really refined, and you were just such a hater for so long.
Well, I thought he was slow, coming out of school, so it's nice to see his speed pick up here.
It is nice to see his usage pick up because for a long time, he was basically a gadget player that didn't have these massive, we saw it in week 1. We haven't seen it since, but I was breaking it down. The last 2 weeks, he's seen 11 targets in each game. His first read target share bets is 33%. And the biggest shift has also just been he's playing in the slot over 50% of the time. For the first 14 weeks, it was just a third. So they're manufacturing touches for him, and you've seen some big plays. He's been targeted on 30% of his routes. Like, if you break down this slate and you look at pricing and salary, and then you look at someone's usage, and you're just looking at these last two, like, he's mispriced for how he's been used the last 2 weeks. So at 5,600 on DK and 6,600 on FanDuel, he's going to be a priority and a popular play.
For sure. I really like him a lot. Last week, we saw Marquise Brown return to the lineup, and snaps were Xavier Worthy leading the pack at 59, Justin Watson 39, Hopkins 36, Juju 27, Brown 20. So it's like him at the top and everybody else kind of rotated behind him. Now, could Hollywood Brown play more in his second game off of IR, second game of the year? Obviously that's likely, but he also lapped his teammates in routes run. 38 routes run last week. Nobody else had more than 30 at the wide receiver position. So I think he's a really good play on the slate. And like you talked about too, with just the usage down the stretch, we see this with the rookies all the time. It is actually kind of funny. Matt Nagy was talking about this in a presser yesterday. He kind of comped him, or the situation, not his play style, but how it happened with Rashee Rice last year, where it was a slow burn. All of us nerds in our mama's basement were like, where is Rashee Rice? He's so good. Get this guy more touches. And you saw him get more comfortable down the stretch. So I do think the usage is sticky and it's here to stay. Obviously, game theory standpoint, if he's going to be the most popular wide receiver play potentially on the slate, don't get me wrong, you could obviously get away from it, but I do think he is one of the best price-adjusted plays on the slate at wide receiver.
Yeah, and I don't think he'll be played a ton with Hopkins, so that just creates a really easy leverage point if you wanted to go Hopkins over Worthy in a large field tournament. If you are playing smaller field or you're playing cash, Worthy seems like one of the best plays on the slate. But I do like Hopkins at his price, 5,100, 6,100 on FanDuel. Any other KC pass catchers that you kind of have your head around, you're looking at? Noah Gray's been trending in the wrong direction. He still catches touchdowns, so that's annoying. Kelsey, the other tight ends on this slate, Andrews, Likely, the Doctor, I feel like they're going to project really well at their price point, so I wonder how Kelsey's going to show up in roster percentage.
Yeah, I think he's interesting, right? Because, we just talked about Worthy and nothing negative to say. Like, I think he's a very good play. But also, Hollywood Brown, people that are looking at box score from week 1, oh, great, this guy just saw 8 targets and he barely played. Like, if you tell yourself a story where the snaps come up, you could really paint a good picture for Hollywood Brown. And I think if people are going to stack Mahomes, they might just take those two guys and move on. So depending on Kelsey's roster percentage, and again, on a 2-game slate, like, you're not sneaking anybody by anyone. It's not going to be 10%. But I'm interested to see where he comes in. If he's going to be the second or third most popular tight end play, that feels like a good spot to go to. Like, how long can Kelsey at 5,300 on DraftKings? That's a price tag. That's a price tag we would do anything to play in DFS from the last year plus. So I think Kelsey's a really strong play, and honestly, like it could be leverage on Worthy, it could be leverage on Hollywood Brown, or like you talked about, people sometimes don't stack enough with their quarterback on the slate, meaning they only stack one guy or two guys. But if the Chiefs lead the slate in scoring and Mahomes is the QB1, what if he spreads out the production and he throws 3 touchdowns to one of each of these guys? Like that kind of stuff happens on small 2-game slates. So I do think Kelsey as part of Mahomes triples or doubles definitely is a strong play this week.
I need to go back and find. I know it's been the lowest in a couple of years. I mean, this is lower than what he is in preseason.
Yeah.
This is a stupid low price for Kelsey. So I agree. I do think it's one of those things where you lean in, you overstack the Kansas City side, and then you bring it back with, say, Najee, and you just say, hey, the Steelers kind of hold the fort for a while, and then the way that they get there is the KC passing attack. So I like that a lot. Kareem Hunt is so hard to figure out because there are weeks where it's an easy fade. He's going to plod, and yet I feel like he's a really good bet to get in the end zone in this game.
If you want to absolutely hate your Christmas, you play Najee and Kareem Hunt in the same lineup. Like imagine a more boring RB1 and RB2 combo than Najee and Kareem Hunt. But I mean, the truth is the usage that we saw last week could be something that sticks moving forward. I talked about that Nagy presser with Worthy. He also mentioned like they like kind of having this tandem going here with Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. And last week, Hunt led this duo in snaps, 32-26. Routes run, 18-13, which we don't think about Hunt in that way, but more routes, 11 carries to 9 carries, and saw 3 targets to Pacheco's 2. So it's basically a split 50-50 right down the middle. And whenever that's the case, I'm going to let roster percentage dictate how I handle that in tournaments. So if the field is going to box score chase what Hunt just did, Pacheco's a good play. If everybody's going to be grossed out by clicking the button on Hunt, and wants to play Pacheco instead, I think Hunt's a very good play. So kind of a cop-out answer, but one of those situations where there's some uncertainty in the workload. And whenever that's the case, I do like letting ownership and roster percentage just dictate how I handle it.
Okay, so if you think that this game is the game and you're playing those running backs, are you essentially picking one of them and then stacking up the Steelers side?
I do think I probably would only play one of them, I think. Is that your question? You wouldn't play them together?
Yeah, like let's say let's say you play Hunt or you play Pacheco, but the game script you're going with is, hey, like Kansas City, let's say you play Hunt, Kansas City defense, and then you're stacking up the Russ side because you think they have to come back.
Yeah, I think that's one way to do it. Honestly, though, I don't think you even have to really like force yourself into the Pittsburgh side of things from a game flow standpoint. Because, I mean, like with the Chiefs, I forget the stat. I forget how many plays they average per drive, but they're like the definition of like grind the clock, sustain the drive, pick up multiple first downs every time. So there's an outcome that exists where like you need Chiefs and like you didn't really even need anybody on Pittsburgh kind of thing. And they'll throw no matter what too, right? Like they're third in pass rate over expectation over the last 5 weeks at plus 11% over expected. So they'll throw no matter what. I think they're going to put up points here. So my lean is like underweight in general, Pittsburgh, and just lean into the KC side because there's so many options and there's so many ways to do it.
You would think that.
Yeah.
Just, believing that the Chiefs would somehow come out with a victory.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It will be by a field goal, but a victory will likely be had.
I think the Chiefs defense will be the most popular. They're 3K. They're in a good spot. I mean, Chris Jones does change a little bit of this scenario, but yeah, this game's interesting. These are two teams that win in gross ways, and you respect them a ton. Like, hear me out if you're Chiefs and Steelers fans. Like, these are respectable teams. It's just not always great for fantasy and the fantasy output of a game that's going to, the over-under's at 43.5. So give me your Vegas take.
All right. A field goal feels right. So I will take Tomlin as a home underdog, and I will take the points.
Dang it. Well, this is not good because I will be taking the same thing.
Okay, KC -3 is a lock.
There we go. All right, next game we're going to talk about is a fun one. Baltimore at Houston. Baltimore's 5.5-point road favorite. The over-under is 46.5, and the Ravens have the highest team implied total on the slate. So 26 points is a lot to work with for a team on the road against another playoff team. But, with Houston, you just feel sad about Tank Dell. You just feel sad in general. And you kind of look around and you go, okay, so who are the playmakers here? Deontay Johnson revenge game. We know that. He's just in the locker room, not playing, but he is just seething. He is just like, man, those dudes over there, he's just going to spread all this misinformation about the way that Ravens locker room is. So much trash about them.
The Deontay thing is so weird, man. I don't get it. I mean, he's in a contract year. Kind of, apparently, like, the NFL doesn't like him as much as fantasy people do. Only two teams put a claim in on him, one of which was the Chargers and Houston, obviously. Is he even going to play in this game? Do you know?
I would assume he's not going to be up to speed after getting claimed on, Monday.
Yeah, he might run like a handful of routes.
Such a short turnaround.
Yeah. So I probably won't be playing any of him, but I don't even know if he's in the player pool, honestly, on DK or FanDuel.
I'm looking right now. I don't think he is, but I could be wrong. I think the way that this game is played by the field is that the Baltimore side just kind of rolls. And we've not really seen the Texans show out. So it's kind of like if you're stacking up this game, I think the field will just say, oh, I picked 2 or 3 pieces from the Baltimore side and I run it back with Nico. Because I've seen the passing metrics of the Ravens and you could throw on them, or at least season long you could throw on them, and you kind of move on. Like Mixon, we highlighted this on the main show. Did you know he has the widest split of any running back over the last decade from home and road? And he's actually bad at home. It's a weird split.
It's counterintuitive.
Yeah, and the matchup right here, I mean, we talk about this a lot, but like you can't just say, oh, well, he's a bad home player and therefore he's bad. It's kind of like this past week, Betz and I were joking about Jonathan Taylor. I was like, dude, his splits against Tennessee are so bad. And we were kind of going, back and forth. It's like, well, those are different teams.
Different coach.
I was just yeah, and I was just messing with you, just saying like, here's this stat about how bad Jonathan Taylor's been against the Titans in his career. But you can't just use that as the only stat that you make your decisions on. You make it on matchup, team implied total, game flow, all those things. And all of that says that Mixon's expensive on DK. On FanDuel, I think he's fine at 8K. But if they get behind, you will see some more Dare Ogunbowale. So Mixon is a volatile player on this slate.
For sure, yeah. And obviously the matchup is not good. Nobody really runs on the Ravens at all. They're number 1 in explosive rush rate allowed and 6th in yards per carry over the last 6 weeks. If you zoom in on the season, they're still, top 5 in like every metric. So it'll be tough sledding for sure for Joe Mixon on this slate. I don't have as much interest in him just from a price adjusted standpoint as I do Derrick Henry, but I think a lot of the field is going to feel the same way. So just from a game theory standpoint, I do think Mixon is interesting as leverage off Henry, who I would assume is the most popular running back play on the slate.
Yeah, you start going down the list at running back, you're like, Mixon, it's not a great matchup. I don't really like him. And then you look at the rest of the dudes we just talked about. It's like, okay, the Steelers are plotters. The Chiefs have kind of been plotters.
And they're both timeshares.
Like that. Yeah. So it's like you can point your finger at everyone else and look back at Joe Mixon and go, well, maybe I just need raw points.
Yeah.
And maybe he's going to get me 10, 11 points, and we have to adjust the way we look at DFS and adjust the way we look at a 2-game slate. So don't just rule out Mixon because of the matchup. Like he's still going to project fine compared to Pacheco or some of these other dudes. So just be wary that Ogunbowale could steal some of those looks. What else do you want to say about the Texans side?
Yeah, it's an interesting spot, right? Because, I mean, Houston's number 2 in pass rate over expectation over the last 5 weeks. You think to yourself, okay, sweet. I mean, they just are they're underdogs here. They should be throwing a ton. But then you go back to the coaching staff and also kind of the identity of the team right now. Obviously, no Steph Diggs, no Tank Dell. Behind Nico Collins, this is not a wide receiver core that gives you a ton of confidence or excitement. So I could see Bobby Slowick saying, I know the matchup is terrible, but let's keep this game low scoring and just try to win with variance, keep Lamar off the field, and feed Mixon. So I have concerns about this trio of, John Mechie, Robert Woods, Xavier Hutchinson. If they're chalk, that looks like a good spot to get away from it. If you are playing cash games on this slate, I think the salary savings for one of these guys, probably Robert Woods, is fine. He played in 2 wide receiver sets last week. with Tank Dell off the field. It is worth noting John Mechie did not play last week, and you saw Xavier Hutchinson get a little bit of run. So I think if Mechie plays, he should be back. I'm pretty sure the wide receiver, or three wide receiver set should be Nico, Woods, and Mechie. I mean, I could see these guys failing, obviously. So I'm cognizant of roster percentage around those guys.
Yeah, Hutchinson will get some run too. I'll tell you who won't get some run. Jared Wayne.
Come on, Jared.
Dude, way to ruin. I mean, so sad for Tank Dell that twice he has been lost because of his own teammate injuring him. The NRG Stadium is going to be rocking, man. Well, also, what a terrible name for a stadium. I mean, I think Nico's a pay up, but you just kind of eat it because he's a top wide receiver on the slate. And then if you want to mix in one of those guys, you're still throwing darts because regardless of what the route usage is, like let's say Woods is ahead, I think Mechie is clearly the more explosive player and targeted, in a way that's more meaningful for fantasy. So on FanDuel, he's even cheaper than Woods. So that's what I want. I think the doctor, though, is probably the easiest click of this group. So if you wanted to stack up the Lamar side and you say, who am I bringing it back with? Nico and Schultz are just the only ones that you can have confidence in. And it's an easy way to get off Nico and just say, I think Schultz is the one that catches the touchdown. I think he sees 7-8 targets, maybe more. And he ends up being just an incredible play at his price.
Yeah, last week he was second behind only Nico Collins in routes run on the team. Saw 8 targets for a 24% share. So I think he's a pretty good play. I mean, like any tight end that's not, Bowers or, McBride failed this last week, but in general, those elite guys, anybody not named those handful of guys can fail, honestly, obviously. So don't hear what I'm not saying, but I think relatively speaking from a projection standpoint, from a salary standpoint, I think Schultz is my preferred quote unquote wide receiver 2 play. If you are going to stack up Stroud, I prefer him to Woods and Mechie. But again, kind of like the Pittsburgh crew, I would be mindful of the combinations you have here. I would be absolutely shocked, and I will be losing money if multiple of Woods, Mechie, Hutchinson, and Schultz are all what you need on the slate. So just be mindful of the combinations you have there.
All right, last little thought is about Stroud, and they have gone a little bit more pass happy recently. We like that for fantasy, and I think they'll have to do it in this game. It's at home against a team that you just can't run on. So Stroud's $6K on DK, $7,300 on FanDuel. I mean, he's going to get trumped by Lamar in terms of roster percentage, and he's right there with Mahomes in terms of pricing where you're kind of going back and forth of like, okay, who's a better play? Stroud is an easy player to me to overstack. Is to say I'm going Collins, I'm going Schultz, and then if you want to find the cheap guy, that's fine too. But let's say you just double stack Stroud, triple stack if you got feeling spunky, and then you bring it back with Henry on the other side. I think you can get there in volume. Look, the Ravens do the same thing where they just like lower the entire play volume of because they just sustain these long drives. But I think Stroud, it is possible for him to volume his way. We just haven't seen it very much this year.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be very efficient when you're throwing it to guys not named Nico Collins that are, wide receiver 4s for you or 5s on your depth chart entering the season. It's hard to have success from a ceiling standpoint. But again, it's a 2-game slate. So like if Lamar is fine and gives you 20, but Stroud gives you like 16 to 17 points, the $2,000 difference might be enough for Stroud to be in the optimal. So yeah, like I said, I have interest in all 4 quarterbacks across a portfolio of lineups. And I do think they're going to struggle to run the football. So even though Stroud might not be super efficient from like a YPA standpoint or anything like that, he could just volume his way there in this spot at home. And historically, he is a guy that plays better at home in the dome. So yeah, Stroud's fine. Obviously, you're not excited about Woods, Mechie, and Hutchinson, but the stacking partners are pretty cheap.
I think a difficult part of this slate is that these are 4 good defenses and defenses that can rush the passer. And so you're trying to figure out an angle here. Like the Texans are the cheapest defense on the slate at 2,600 on DK. And yet they're 3rd in the league in pressure rate over expectation. So if you have the game script, which we love Lamar, we've always been very pro Lamar, but Lamar has games where he just kind of implodes with like 2 or 3 turnovers. He sometimes just doesn't take care of the football and fumbles it away. there is a scenario in this game where you're playing the Texans defense, you're playing Mixon, and you think they just sit on a lead, and the whole play volume just kind of goes under. This game hits the under. So that's another angle that I'm trying to figure out here, because I think the Ravens are a good, solid play. They make a lot of sense. This Texans team is kind of hurt, and Stroud hasn't been very good or efficient. So it makes sense to play the Ravens defense, but also keep in mind like the turnover potential and the pressure rate that the Texans have. They've been really good too against the pass. 6th in EPA per dropback, 2nd in dropback success rate over the last 6 weeks. So I like the Texans as like a high upside leverage play on defense, if you want to go that route. But what do you think about Lamar and the Ravens side?
Yeah, it's kind of tough to talk about right now before we get final news on Zay Flowers. He did not practice Sunday or Monday. It's so weird saying that, but didn't practice Sunday or Monday after their Saturday game last week with the shoulder injury. And Harbaugh said on Sunday he feels optimistic about him playing. Obviously, we'll know more once Tuesday practice reports come out, so make sure you're monitoring that news on Zay Flowers. But if Zay is out or limited, is worth also mentioning Nelson Aguilar also in concussion protocol, missed last week. Did not practice either, so I don't think he's playing. Justice Hill is going to vacate opportunities in the pass game. So if Zay is out or limited and those other two guys also miss, I mean, Bateman's going to be the most popular wide receiver play on the slate when you adjust for salary, but I think he'd be pretty good chalk. I think both tight ends would be very good plays. It's just that there's not a ton of pass catchers to compete with in that scenario. So Bateman's a guy that I definitely have interest on this slate, especially considering Houston's given up some big plays in the pass game as well. And historically, Bateman, kind of like Pickens in a way, is not really a huge volume guy, but he'll give you somewhere between 2 to 5 catches most week and a lot of targets down the field. So I like Bateman a lot for tournaments. Although if Zay is out, I'm a little bit weary of roster percentage in that scenario.
Yeah, I think likely is the one that gets the biggest boost in my mind if Flowers is out, just in terms of route participation, and they'll probably go more 12. Yeah, I think both tight ends are great at their price point too. Like it's weird to say that like Andrews, who they just don't want to increase his price. That's fine. You disrespect the man, he'll make you pay. Andrews, likely, Schultz, I think are all pretty good plays at their price points. We talked about how Kelsey's been super cheap. So, I mean, I could see builds this week that have 2 tight ends. I know you're a big fan.
You know me.
You love it. But they're going to project well.
I think that's going to be very popular, actually, to have 12 personnel out there in DFS.
So popular.
Because when you think of the cheap plays, I mean, Kelsey's a little expensive, but like the Muth is very cheap. Dalton Schultz, very cheap. Mark Andrews, 4,300. Isaiah Likely, 3,500. I mean, you're comparing those guys to basically the wide receiver trio of Woods, Mechie, and Hutchinson on Houston's side, and Calvin Austin. So I think 2 tight end lineups are going to be very popular. Not saying I won't play some of those, but just if you want to think about a way to get unique, just don't play 2 tight ends on the slate, and your overall construction will be different.
I can already see how the conversation's going to go tomorrow at Christmas. Grandma's talking to you, and she says, "Don't worry, I set a rule in my optimizer to play 2 tight ends in every single build. I just maxed out the 150."
Oh, man, I wish my grandma played DFS. I'm gonna try to get her hooked on it.
Yeah, just explain it to her. Now, what's this, Matthew? This fake football? This is fake.
My grandma's 96.
You guys,
there's not a chance.
Jeez,
there's not a chance. The other day I was visiting her, and she was asking me about. She's like, "I haven't gotten any texts recently." I'm like, "Okay, well, what's wrong with your phone?" She has like the second version of the iPhone. It's so old. I looked at it. God bless her soul, man. She had it on airplane mode for I don't even know how long.
For years.
I was like, well,
years.
See, you have this little airplane icon. It's not going to have your cell service on. It's the whole thing. So we'll see if we can get there on DFS.
Hey, you just set her up the account, maybe throw her a few DK crowns.
There you go.
She'll be happy.
There you go. And I'll get a little referral back. A little boost.
Hey, Grandma. I'm here. I'm just here for the referral. That's
oh, we are terrible humans.
Let's finish by talking about Henry. He's the king. And Justice Hill's probably going to be out with a concussion. So you get a little bit more of Derrick Henry in the passing game, which he's always been good when he's given the opportunities. He just doesn't get them very much. And his splits are the exact opposite of Mixon, where he's really good at home, but he's on the road. But it kind of just doesn't really matter on this slate. You need raw points. So how are you handling Henry? Do you feel like he's just going to be, people are going to go in, they're going to look at the running backs and go, well, I got to take Mixon or Henry. I'm going to take Henry.
Yeah. I think that's what everybody feels. And I mean,
that's the analysis.
I'll be honest, I feel the same. They're favored. The splits in wins, just not just this year with the Ravens, but historically for Derrick Henry, are just massive compared to losses. So if you think the Ravens win this game without Justice Hill, where last week he saw a season high in snaps and routes, I think he's a really good play. Now, 2-game slate, game theory standpoint, I think there's some lineups that you should play without him just to get some leverage, but I don't really have anything negative to say about the King in this game. If they fall behind, you're not going to see him as much. So make sure you're correlating your lineup as such. But I think he's a great play. And obviously, if you're playing cash, I think he's the best running back play on the slate.
Imagine fading the King on Christmas Day.
That is terrifying.
It is. It's one of those things where you could finish the day, because this is the afternoon game, and just ride this man. I mean, everybody else is going to be doing it, and just ride yourself to a victory in DFS on Christmas.
That is a great point.
Derrick Henry.
That is a great point, actually, too. Just for late swap, like knowing that he's going to be RB1, I think for a lot of people, if you're behind and you struggle in the early game with Pittsburgh and KC, make sure you, if you need to, get off of Derrick Henry.
Yeah. All right, so the line is 5.5. It's tough. What's your Vegas take?
I'm taking the Ravens, man. Less than a touchdown. Houston's got injuries. They just lost an offensive lineman as well. Their offensive linemen have struggled all year, as is. No Tank Dell, no Steph Diggs. Lamar's playing the best football of his career, I would say, as a passer.
Yeah.
So I'm taking the Ravens.
Like I said, NRG Stadium is going to be rocking. I like D'Amico Ryans. I think he's a good defensive coach. It really comes down to what my boy Bobby Slowick is going to call. Is Bobby Slowick just going to say, hey, second down, let's run the ball?
2nd and 8, we got to set up third and manageable.
Yeah, I'm worried about that. So, give me the Texans plus 5.5.
Super confident.
Yeah.
Is it time to reimagine your future? The right business skills may make a difference in your career. At Capella University, we offer a relevant education that's designed to focus on what you need to know in the business world. We'll teach professional skills to help you pursue your goals, like business management, strategic planning, and effective communication. And you can apply these skills right away. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
This episode is brought to you by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. Catch every moment of your team's playoff push with NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. You'll get amazing features like multi-view, and right now, it's only $49 for the rest of the NFL regular season. So give yourself the ultimate gift this holiday season. Get NFL Sunday Ticket for $49. Sign up now at youtube.com/Sunday Ticket. Device and content restrictions apply. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games.
All right, we did want to give out a couple of Christmas Day props so that you can hopefully not sink any more money, but actually gain some money on Christmas.
Moving the lines.
All right, Betz, hit us with a few lines on Christmas. It's Christmas cash.
Christmas cash, yes. First play, and just real quick on this, props conversation, very separate than DFS, meaning we're taking CJ Stroud under 250.5 passing yards. However, he could still throw for 220 and 3 touchdowns and be great in DFS. So this does not mean he is a bad DFS play, but just from a process standpoint, he's been under this line in 10 of 15 games this year, including every Texans loss. We mentioned they're 5.5 point underdogs against the Ravens, and the pass defense for the Ravens is not what it was early in the year. The last 6 weeks, they are number 1 in yards per pass attempt allowed at 5.9. And this is already down on other books. We got this on Bet365, BetMGM, Hard Rock. This is already down into the low 240s elsewhere. So if you can find that 250, 246.5, something along those lines. That is still playable in my opinion.
All right. Yeah, if you want to get all of our props, you can go to dfspass.com. We give out our official props, our props alerts. And Betz, look up real quick what our record is on the season, because it's definitely been our best year so far. I feel like it's been better and better. Maybe that's just...
If these trends continue,
has it been that way?
We're going to definitely regress next year. So terrible sales pitch by the DFS Pass. but we're 150 on the season after Monday Night Football last night.
Plus, wait, what?
So out of 150 total bets, 100 wins, 50 losses. So 2/3 win rate. We are plus 33.5 units.
All right, man, that makes me feel really, really good. Now we'll have to figure out the marketing for next year because we've done a terrible job this year.
Salary standouts.
All right, we are going to shift gears here, and we are trying to, the best that we can, think about life after Christmas. So, Betz, just think about it. Your girls, they're happy. They are so happy. You have done well. You've got them exactly what they wanted. And, me, of course, I got everything my heart desired too. Did I ever tell you that I got to have Santa gifts for a very long time as a kid? I'm 9 years older than my brother. And so my parents kept the Santa conversation going for a long time. And if they were going to keep it going, they had to keep giving me stuff too.
Kyle's a freshman in high school, still getting gifts from Santa.
Oh, you said freshman? Try junior year.
Oh my, no. Is that real?
Dude, I'm 9 years older than my brother. Think about
incredible.
that. My brother's 6 or 7.
That's absolutely incredible.
Oh man, I told my wife that our first couple Christmas, I was like, Christmas was really, really good to me. I think my parents went a little overboard, and we're not doing that.
No.
So we definitely shifted gears, but we are going to be talking about the main slate, which is Sunday condensed games. There will be an article out, a full chart this week where I've broken down every single player, and I have kind of shown their targets per outrun, their first read, and then I actually put it in salary form. So you can look at some of these plays and go, wow, this dude at this price point is a really good play. For instance, Malik Neighbors is going to be one of the top ones because he's just 6,600. And when you convert that to how many targets you see him per game, that is a steal. So that's one way to look at some of these salary standouts. So we'll be talking about some of these games, previewing some of these games later on in the week. It's really tough to get out ahead of it. But at quarterback, this past week we liked Anthony Richardson. He's only 5,900. It's against the Giants. They're 8-point favorites. I feel like it's another great tag.
For sure. And not a straight line comparison as far as the play style or anything like that, but it is worth noting just 2 weeks ago, Lamar went for 65 yards on the ground against this Giants team. They've struggled against mobile quarterbacks. So we talked about it last week. If he gets that goal line opportunity or he gets carries inside the red zone, A-Rich, it's hard for him to truly be terrible for DFS, meaning 10 plus, 12 plus points is super likely. Now you get the Giants. So I think Anthony Richardson sub 6K, again, on a small slate, this is an 8-game slate Sunday, is a great tag.
All right, I want to throw out a couple other plays. Sam Darnold is at home, and it's wild to think that the Vikings still have a shot at the 1 seed. They're playing the Packers this week, and then they have a monster game in Week 18 against the Lions. The schedule makers did a really good job. If you look at the schedule this week, 14 of the games are in conference, and then next week, all of the games are in somebody in your division. So there's a lot on the line. With the Vikings at home, Sam Darnold's been awesome. So he has 32 passing touchdowns, which is just crazy. I looked it up. He had 30 passing touchdowns the previous 4 years combined. It's crazy. So 6.4 at home. Darnold's been a play that is always projecting really well, and his price has never really gone up. So later on in the week, I feel like the Vikings will be that game will be one that we definitely target. And I'm interested in Darnold, maybe for tournaments, but I think Richardson is the best when you adjust for price and you think of his rushing.
Agreed. I like that game a lot. We'll talk about it, but Christian Watson picked up a knee injury last night, and so you're going to get some value, I think, on the pass catchers from the Green Bay side, and it's always been a struggle in DFS to like figure out how to stack it. But if you remove Watson from the equation, it becomes a little bit more clear. I also think you're going to see way more Jordan Love pass attempts in this game than we have seen in basically 2 months. So I do like both sides, whether it's Darnold or Love for tournaments, and we'll talk about that more on Friday.
All right, at running back, we talked about the Vikings a little bit. Aaron Jones is still priced in a way that looks really, really good. He's 6.2 in a revenge game at home.
So much revenge in his heart.
That script itself just writes itself. Devon Achane is 7.7. He's a wide receiver. And so when you adjust for opportunities and you weight them, you think about how much more a target is, more than 2 or 2.5 times valuable than a rush attempt. Devon Achane at 7.7 is going to project really, really well against Cleveland. Some of the other plays that I'm kind of interested in, like Bucky is going to project really well at 6.7 against Carolina. They're in must-win territory because, I don't know if you knew this, Betz, the Falcons are in first place right now in the really tough NFC South.
That Sunday night game should be a lot of fun. Commanders and Falcons, with the Falcons having
stressful.
Their season on the line. Drake London with the hamstring injury. What could go wrong?
In my main league team, I have Jaden Daniels and Bijan. And so my heart's going to go in 1,000 different places every single play.
Your what's your thing called? Your whoop? Your whoop?
Yeah, my whoop.
Oh,
strat.
you were going to be stressed out of your mind Sunday night.
I do need to track that and then live tweet about it because that's what people want.
That's the content people need.
Not about the game, just my stress score.
Of course.
I will track that. But there's a couple of good running back plays that are going to project really, really well. If you want to pay up for Saquon and you think, hey, he's going after the record, they're going to ride him. Maybe they take the ball out of Kenny Pickett's hands. Saquon's going to project really, really well against a Dallas run funnel defense. Any other thoughts at running back?
No, I think we hit on the main ones that stand out early in the week. But again, we'll circle back to this a lot more detail on Friday.
Any interest in Jonathan Taylor? I don't know if you've heard of him, but 7.9, it's on the road. If you're not playing A-Rich, does he get a little boost in your mind of okay, if I'm not playing A-Rich in cash, it goes through Taylor?
I think so. Yeah. Kind of same conversation as last week. I thought Taylor was a great play just as leverage off Richardson. And we saw last week they both got there together. Now, how often does that happen? I'm not sure it's a ton, but it's the Giants. They're favored. Taylor's, he's even in the Denver game a couple weeks ago, he was running very well. He's playing super well right now. Just unfortunately dropped that touchdown at the goal line 2 weeks ago. But otherwise, yeah, I think Taylor's a great play again.
We'll have to wait on some of the news about the Saints stuff because some of their players are underpriced. So there's going to be people that say, I want to play Kendre Miller this week because it's against the Raiders and he's 5.5. Enjoy that. Enjoy playing any player from the Saints. That was a terrible Monday night game.
That was the worst experience of all time watching that game. They just, they have there's zero talent offensively right now with their guys out. It's tough to watch.
We scheduled I was out last night with the boys, the boys from my league. And we were like, sweet, this game's going to be super important. We're going to find out who's going to be in the championship. It was all settled beforehand and we got a crappy game. We still got to hang out, but it's one of those things where this game doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah, that's tough.
Wide receiver. There's a couple of things that we're still trying to figure out, especially the Green Bay wide receivers. Please, Jaden Reed, be everything that I've ever hoped for and dreamed of. I would love that. Who are some other wide receivers you like early in the week for cash?
Yeah, Devonta Smith continues to be priced below $6K. Obviously, A.J. Brown had a truly alpha game, especially with his first read targets. I know you sent that to me yesterday. But as far as just raw targets, he's getting volume right now, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. You're not really scared about the matchup. So I do think Devonta Smith is interesting. I'm also interested in Adam Thielen again. 5,700 taking on the Bucks in a good matchup. And then, yeah, you talked about the Green Bay wide receiver situation. All these guys are cheap because of Monday Night Football. You remove Christian Watson, you could see the targets condense a little bit or the route participation condense. Dontavian Wicks is going to be an interesting discussion if Watson is out. He is 3,900 on DraftKings, and the last couple times he's been mega chalk. He has let everybody down. So we'll see what happens come Friday.
Yeah, there's a couple other plays. Let's say, you're trying to figure out that Tampa Bay game. Mike Evans is going to project really, really well against Carolina, a team that he's destroyed in the past. Devontae Adams is going to project really, really well against Buffalo. He's been super solid recently. Can I just bring up Calvin Ridley? I hate bringing him up, but if you sort by targets, you look at his price, he's 5,500. It's against the Jaguars. We were supposed to have revenge a couple of weeks ago. This could be revenge again. If it's Mason Rudolph, he's on the table.
Definitely. I think he's a good play. Last time he played the Jaguars, he saw 12 targets. So if we get anything close to that, I think we're going to have a much better outcome than we did the first time.
And let's give it up for Chig Okonkwo. I think at this point, I've probably lost a lot of money over the years on Chig Okonkwo. I don't even know where his Chig drop is anymore. I used to have a Chig drop. But he balled out this past week. He's balled out the last couple of weeks. And with Mason Rudolph, he's basically been like a top 6 tight end in terms of usage. He's only 3,600, and it's against the Jaguars. He's a player that we circled. We talked about last week. I had him in my top plays. I played him in some tournaments as leverage off of Strange, and he's a solid play this week too. I mean, it's wild to see him below Brenton Strange, like $400 cheaper.
11 and 10 targets the last 2 weeks for Chig. I mean, that's a good target projection for this price tag. I do think tournament consideration, because assuming he's popular, which we don't have that up right now, but come Friday we will. That seems like a really good spot to get away from in tournaments, but for cash games as a punt, I'm down.
David Njoku is 4,700, and DTR, we've seen 4 DTR starts, 3 last year, 1 this year. He kind of heavily targets Njoku, and at his price point, I think he's solid. He's going to project really well compared to some other tight ends. So if you're scared of DTR, you can get away from Njoku, but at 4,700, that's a solid tag as well. If you want to pay up for Brock Bowers just to feel something, you can do that too.
Yeah, I'm not even sure DTR plays, though. He picked up a calf injury last week, so TBD. If it's Jameis, which hopefully it's Jameis, I mean, that's not a downgrade to me. That's potentially an upgrade, so we'll see.
And then defense earlier in the week, there's some really crappy matchups this week. There's a couple of ones where if you wanted to play Vegas or play the Saints, both those teams are just bad at football.
It's the lowest total on the slate as well. I think it's 40 right now.
Yeah, so the Raiders, if you wanted to play them, they're all the way down there at 2,600. I think they're a really solid, and then the Saints are 2,900. So pick one of those two teams if you want. The Eagles at 3.1 are not priced up enough because they're at home against Cowboys. Now, the Eagles, where are you at on their team motivation? I know they have to drop a couple to drop out of the 2 seed, but do you think they're just basically going to win this week and then rest their guys next week?
I mean, we'll see. The NFC East isn't even locked up yet, so they're going all out to win this week, no doubt.
Right. They have to lose 2 in a row, and the Commanders have to win 2 in a row.
So we'll see.
So, okay. I think beyond this, we'll talk team motivation next week when we have a lot of different scenarios, and we're going to be talking about players next week in Week 18 DFS that are not even close to being on our radar.
I can't wait.
And they're going to be mispriced.
I can't wait.
We're going to have the weirdest roster construction. So if you want to play with us, go to ballersdfs.com. It will direct you to our DraftKings League, Fantasy Footballers DFS, Borg Betz. We will open up some contests because there's basically something every single day this week. So ballersdfs.com if you want to be a part of it. And Betz, wish everyone a Merry Christmas.
Yes, happy holidays. Merry Christmas to all of you. Hope you guys enjoy all that you do around the holiday season, but enjoy the 2-game slate on Wednesday. No article on Thursday, but there will be a contest up for us to play. Kyle and I are back on Friday to preview the Sunday main slate. Best of luck on Christmas. Have a great holiday. We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.